who are we? We've got Marietta and Tom. We are, Jude, we're set to go. Who are we? Who are we waiting for? Marietta and Tom. We are, Jude, we're set to go. Who are we waiting for? Marietta and Tom. We are, Jude, there's.
I believe we're live right now, Holly.
Okay. Well, look at, why don't we, just respecting everyone's time, we will formally open the January meeting of the Board of Police Commission is now in session. So the first order of business is to welcome our newest commissioner, Jude Hessen. Jude, welcome. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve on this august commission, but we're looking forward to working with you, and this is it's certainly what I think we found is an interesting and very active commission, and it's certainly given the responsibility that chief and the other senior people have, it's one that is sometimes a little humbling, recognizing all the things they're dealing with. But anyway, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Right. The first order of business is there
Have
a
you done the
motion?
Pledge of Allegiance yet, Ed?
No, we haven't, Tom. Thank you. We will open our meeting per our practice with the Pledge of Allegiance. So, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business, as I said, was the acceptance, their motion to accept the December Police Commission minutes.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay. In the discussion, are there any comments, edits, or suggestions to the minutes?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are accepted. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'd just like
yes.
to show that I abstain from that vote.
Thank you, Jude. That would be appropriate. Public comments. Holly, are there any members of the public that we're aware of that have signed on and would like to participate? Have public comments at all? Does anyone have their hand raised that we can see? Okay. No member of the public choose to comment. Chief, why don't we move to your report?
Well, I just want to remind you, we have three folks that are in attendance tonight. Maureen Lopes, Ryan Duquesne will be speaking briefly, and Stephen Brunel.
Okay. Chief, where do you want to do that under new business? Depending on the remark, where do you want to? Where do you think it would fit, just in terms of the presentation? Do you want to handle those, particularly the presentation now?
Well, it's in new business, but I have, if you like, sir, we can hear it right now if you like.
Okay. Why don't we do that, since it is under a public comment portion of the agenda? So included in our packet was a proposal by Mr. Duquesne. Ryan, would you like to walk us through the material at this point? I've seen he said hi.
Holly, could you make him a panelist?
We need to bring them into the meeting.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief, and thank you very much, Commission. First of all, I just want to thank you all for your service. I know it can be a challenging task to dedicate all your time. So appreciate it. I'll be brief, and I appreciate the Chief suggesting that I bring this conversation to the Commission. I have been pursuing my private pilot license for many years now, and a new part of the FAA allows for a commercial drone pilot's license kind of as part of the building blocks to get there. And I kind of took an interest in this and pursued the license, and through that process determined there might be an opportunity within the town of Madison to utilize this technology that is relatively new to help support our public safety initiatives. I won't go through that brief presentation that I shared with the Chief a couple of months ago, but the basics are that the technology itself is in the thousands or maybe tens of thousands of dollars, so relatively cheap equipment, and the utilization can be for search and rescue. Of course, you can think about our wooded areas, our beaches, and our shoreline, as well as accident investigation. There's some pretty neat software that actually allows for the calculation that might take hours and hours of a human being's time to make calculations, and it calculates it relatively quickly. Crime scene investigation, and then active crime scene utilization as well. Because this is kind of new technology, and because I think that this is probably a growing and somewhat in its infant stage of utilization, I thought that perhaps Madison could, take the opportunity to slowly evaluate whether or not this, technology could be further implemented. The Chief shared with me that already, there is some utilization within the department. But I thought that perhaps we could take a look at what it would, kind of take to formalize a part of the department. And I, of course, being fiscally, responsible and aware, perhaps a volunteer part of the department that could help support the field when an opportunity arose to use technology like this to make public safety more efficient in its deployment. So I don't really have a specific proposal or ask at this stage. I guess I would ask just in concept that perhaps, I could have some additional conversations with the Chief. I was out at the Consumer Electronics Show for other purposes last week, but ended up having quite some interesting conversations with public safety drone manufacturers. And so have some additional information to share about that. And if it seems like there's a possibility that this type of technology could be utilized, that the cost would be insignificant, and that there might be a structure of utilizing, for example, like an auxiliary unit. I think many years ago, Madison utilized an auxiliary unit for certain activities. If that's possible, then perhaps we could take a step and do a formal proposal to the Police Commission to determine if it's something we want to further pursue.
All right, thank you very much. Interesting. I think it was last year, maybe the year before, we as a commission with the Chief were talking about certain aspects of technology that were at that point either being slowly implemented or even in some cases over the horizon a bit. And those discussions led to one of the things that we did incorporate into this year's police department budget requests in the form of cameras, expanded cameras. So I think you're on target in terms of trying to evaluate how certain aspects of technology, can be utilized in a cost-efficient way. Without waving the flag per se, I think the chief 8 years ago was one of the early proponents and advocates for body cameras. And this was at a time when a number of law enforcement agencies were saying, oh, that's intrusive. How are you going to manage it? They're going to break. And now, certainly with our experience, and it's been an essential part of law enforcement and service, and it served as much to enhance the credibility, integrity of the department. Certainly, because the fact that everyone assumes we're recording everyone now, and we're very comfortable with our our officers and the body camera. So I think you're certainly on the right track to say, is this something that might be explored? And it is something that we will stay alert to, and then see how it might unfold, including the experiences of other law enforcement or first responders, because it might have to your point, might have a broader use in terms of everything from traffic management to how fast is the brush fire moving kind of events. So it's a good kind of summary presentation. I thought it was helpful, and it is something we will say we're now visited with knowledge and aware of it. So let me just ask the chief, is there any summary you want to provide, or does any of the commissioners have any questions they like to ask at this point?
I don't have any other questions. I have spoken in detail with Ryan when we first met, and then the second time we met. Obviously, there is the use of drones is increasing, but the technology with the drones, as far as mapping, particularly major crime scenes or fatal accidents, is worth its weight in gold. But I think right now, for us, it's something we look at maybe to formulate something down the road, and once we get past staffing issues.
Good.
Ryan, I had a question, please. What's the learning curve for this, and how long does it take for somebody to be proficient enough for it to be an asset for the department?
That's a really good question. I think there are two aspects to that. There is the licensure requirement, and that assuming you have someone that can dedicate, maybe 5 hours a week, is probably something that can be done in 3 to 6 months. And then you have the training aspect on the drone itself. And I have flown a variety of different drones. The early drones were much more difficult, to maneuver, and I had quite a few little mishaps, no injuries, but a lot of damage to the drone. But now, many of the drones, I don't want to say they fly themselves, but they're pretty impressive in terms of how they fly. So the training in those cases is probably more technical on the capabilities and on the features of what the drone is doing. They use thermal imaging cameras. They use all sorts of mapping software. So the information that you're gathering from the device is probably what takes up most of the attention of the operator. And that's where I think that there is an opportunity. If you had, for example, an auxiliary set of people that volunteered their time to be the operator, then you could have the professional officers in the field operating in their capacities, because I think it does require a certain amount of bandwidth and kind of eyes on to be the operator. It's hard to be both the public safety professional and the operator at the same time.
Does the existing technology, would it be able to tie into dispatch if we were able to utilize it through our camera systems?
And there are examples of that, certainly, and I would expect, if that were something that was of interest in certain phases, for sure. I think even in the presentation, I showed where there is within the actual patrol cars themselves, they're being fed data, they're being fed images from these units. So there is a lot of integration. And by the way, there are major police departments like New York City, LA, Boston that are using this. So I think that we'll be able to leverage some of those early learnings to see what's working and see what. The other thing too is that a lot of the cost is coming way down on a lot of these features as well.
Good.
Thank you.
Brian, thank you. Appreciate it. Chief, your budget?
All right. Mr. Chairman, if we could, I think we're going to have a robust discussion on budget. So could we put that to the last item of my report and go to activity and work our way through there?
Sure.
In the interest
Fine.
of time for some of the folks
Yep.
attending tonight.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Captain Harkins, Lieutenant Mulhern, Doug, if you would go over the activity for the last quarter, that October, November, December, and if you would too. Also, I'd like a brief discussion for the commission to apprise them how we made it through a lot of the shortness of staff due to COVID, particularly during a holiday period of time.
Okay. Okay. Are we,
Doug, can you hear us?
it is now an official Zoom meeting.
The lower left-hand part of your screen, Doug. No, okay. I'll tell you what, Mr. Chairman, why don't I'll go through the activity while we're waiting for Doug to
Okay.
get back on. Okay, so for the last quarter of the year, we've had 340 alarms that the department's responded to. Of those, there were 261 911 hangups, 123 burglar alarms, 49 fire alarms. Of the fire alarms, they had 7 active fires. Suspicious persons and vehicles, 65 vehicles, 40 persons. I say at every meeting, you're not bothering us. Call those in. That's how we catch people breaking into homes or other. Criminal investigations, we had approximately 189. We've had 59 in custody arrests over the quarter. We had 15 involuntary committals, 0 canine assists. Animal nuisance, a lot of folks are home because of COVID. The weather's been generous to us over the last quarter. That was very, very cold temperatures. So a lot of people are out there with their dogs, particularly in the parks. We have 81 animal nuisance complaints, and of those 5 bites, which resulted in response from the ACO and of course a criminal investigation. We've had approximately 13 juvenile incidents, which have all been brought to closure, meaning people that were missing, meaning is they didn't report home in time. We take the number, we investigate it, they return, and it's been rectified. Some of these also, when we have issues, go through the JRB, the Juvenile Review Board, if it involves a incident that may be criminal in nature or other. Juvenile alcohol and narcotics, we had 0. Fingerprint requests, 69. We still have a lot of folks seeking gun permits. First responders, as the R1, we had 99. Assist a person, 197. Assist other agencies other than K9, 40. Majority of those have to do with accidents, I-95 with the state police. Motor vehicle accidents, we had 69, 0 fatals, and 2 evading. The evadings took place mostly in the parking lots of Stop and Shop. Accidents with injuries, 12, property damage, 41. Private property accidents, 16. Car versus animal, the infamous car versus deer, and we had 12 of those. Activity is up with the officers, ironically, over this quarter. Motor vehicle arrest 47, speed enforcement 419. Tom, 419, you hear that?
I did, but I have a question, Jack. How
well, let
many
me
of those
finish.
speed enforcements
DWI
actually
arrest 1.
involved writing?
Motor vehicle arrest 47, speed enforcement 419, DWI arrest 1, seatbelt 0, cell phone texting 11, written warnings 452, verbal warnings 27. Subtotal calls for service are 970, generated stops 957 for the quarter. All calls for service other than just what you see here highlighted, 2,427 for the quarter. That would be a daily response of police, 26 incidents per day. I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, I was going to say speed enforcements. Thank you for I read that number as well, 419. For the benefit of everybody, what exactly does that mean? Is every one of those a ticket, a written warning, a pull them over on the side of the road and slow down?
And the answer, as I told you before, is the discretion of the officer.
Okay, how many of those were tickets?
Actual motor vehicle arrest 47.
Okay. Under written warnings, you have 452 for the month. That's about 15 or 16 a day. Is that about average?
I would have to do the math, but it sounds reasonable. There's not much activity on midnight shift, so I think between 2 shifts, between all the calls for service that they do, you got to understand that between answering alarms, answering calls for service medically, and besides the fact that we're down staffed, that's a pretty robust number.
Okay.
Well,
This is not a criticism, Jack. It's part of the ongoing conversation you and I have on a
I
regular basis.
understand that, but within the authority of the police department, I think the officers, men and women and others that serve this town, this department, they've done a pretty good yeoman job considering we're short-staffed and we're dealing with the effects of COVID, plus the holiday season. So I think it's more than reasonable.
Yeah. Chief, let me ask you, one of the things that I think is, again, certainly from the feedback, has been very positive, has been the school resource program. Is there a way that our statistics reflect the engagement of a school resource officer, either by, a school official, a parent relating to a school incident? Is that reflected in any of these statistics? Because we've heard reports at different times where school resource officers been made aware of a bullying, a potential bullying on social media, and has had a discussion with the parents. So is that reflected on these particular statistics?
Well, I would say, well, to answer it, yes, they are, particularly in the juvenile or JRB request that generally generates out of the high school. Because they are juveniles, a lot of the information we do not share.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But if there was a request by a principal or teacher to involve an officer with a juvenile, it would be reflected in that statistics that we're looking at.
Correct, and across a criminal investigation also, or
Right.
a 06 investigation.
Yeah. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the activity?
Okay.
Okay, what I'd like to do is,
I'm sorry, Chief, I have a question, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have a lot of questions that you all probably know the answers to, so excuse my learning curve. When you were going through the juvenile activities where it says alcohol and narcotics, there's nothing next to that. There's not zeros, there's not anything. Are there any numbers for that, or should those be zeros?
there's zeros.
Okay,
No, I've done a report.
thank you.
Sure. Good.
Okay, we'll discuss training, but before, Jeremy, I'm gonna have Lieutenant York speak to, Jeremy, I'm gonna have you speak to the training for the month and also a CLIA update. I also want to introduce to the commission our Ms. Katie Randall. Katie works for us as our new support tech services. She handles CALIA and training support to Lieutenant York. Katie, welcome. And I know you probably have children somewhere there, and so I just want to move this along if I could for you. Jeremy?
Yep, so I'll first start with training. So for the month of December, Madison Police Department participated in 221 hours of training. Some of the classes you'll see on the form is some of our OSHA mandatory requirements, such as bloodborne pathogens and hazardous materials. That was all done online. Our annual Taser recertification training was done in person, and that was led by Officer Gonzalez, is our lead instructor with Taser certification. Officer Lazaroff went off-site and participated in a 3-day basic crime scene investigator course, which is good. They get to learn about evidence preservation, photographing a crime scene, so it's a good elective credit. Officers completed their collect recertification. 2 officers completed that, and then we also had our mandatory SWAT training and canine training. And you'll see a breakdown of that in more detail, but it was 221 hours of training for the month of December.
Good.
Jeremy, update for CALIA?
Yep, and update for CALIA. So we are in year 1 of our new certification for our advanced CALIA accreditation for law enforcement and for dispatch. Right now, we are completing all of our 2021 proofs and standards. We have our first review coming up in April. That will be for the year 2021. And lastly, myself and Katie Randall will be starting at the end of the month, 11-week online training through CALIA, where it's accreditation manager training. So that will start at the end of January.
Okay. Thank you.
Lieutenant, or Katie, have put me in the right pew here. So what is our next benchmark process for CALIA? I know you mentioned April for one segment, but if you're to go out 12 to 18 months, are there particular recertification benchmarks that you can cite or point out right now?
So every 4 years we go through the full accreditation process, right, where last year we just got awarded our certificate. So right now we're in our first year of our next certification. So we'll have our final on-site come 2024. But throughout the yearly process, we do get audited. So April, assessors from CALIA will gain access to our files and will assess our 2021. So even though it's a 4-year process, we still get assessed and graded on a yearly process. So right now we're in, just in summary, we're in year 1 of our next 4-year process, and April will be our first official assessment towards this next certification come 2024.
Okay. Well, this is, it certainly has been as we've all recognized, an extraordinary accomplishment to have both the police department and the dispatch both CALIA certified. So again, I know former Captain Joe Race was very involved in it, and it certainly sounds like the baton has been passed, Lieutenant, to you and to Katie. So, and we also certainly have been educated over the years as to the demands that it requires on the department, and the fact that it is ongoing. It's not one of those things you put it on the shelf and you'll pick it up, 3 years from now. So we have a full appreciation. And also, just to let you know, the commission's expectations continue to remain extremely high. So anyway, good luck now that you've taken on this assignment. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Katie. Doug, are you available now to speak? And Neil, as far as some of the challenges to the holiday with patrol?
I guess the captain's still having technical difficulties. Yeah, I can start off with COVID, obviously. We've had a number of officers be out. Luckily, it hasn't been that much of an issue because the way they've been staggered. We're getting some back as we lose some. Another area we've seen it is in dispatch. We're taking the steps to try to mitigate exposure, especially in our building. We've discontinued in-person roll calls where normally, it's not a very big room. You're putting 5 officers in there together and, they're discussing the day's events and what to be expected out on their shift. We've made it initiated back to where it's to be done on the road. They're to come in, get out in their cars, and the sergeant can communicate with them either via telephone or via email or through electronic chat on our computer system. So yes, we are still, it's exacerbating a problem that we're short and we're running minimum shifts due to COVID, unfortunately. We're really struggling in the sergeant ranks due to injuries, but everybody's pulling their weight and we're going through. As far as the struggle through the holidays, it was the normal time of year, unfortunately, where domestic violence incidents increase. You would think it's a happy time, but it's also a stressful time. So that was the main thing we're seeing. I'll give you some of my usual updates regarding car thefts, because that's the hot topic these days. Excuse me. Recently, an arrest was made. Matter of fact, yesterday they served an arrest warrant on an individual out of Hartford. He's currently incarcerated in Cheshire. He was arrested and charged in relation to an auto theft that occurred back in March of 2019. Took a while. He came back as a DNA hit. He's incarcerated on other charges, including burglary, assault, and weapons-related offenses. Since our last meeting, unfortunately, there's been 2 car thefts. One occurred in the Pheasant Drive area and one occurred on Grove. The one on Pheasant Drive was located in New Haven, and New Haven police actually caught a juvenile female returning to the car with the key fob in her pocket. So she was charged in relation to the theft by New Haven. And the other one I mentioned on Grove occurred on the December 27th. That vehicle was located unoccupied in Bridgeport. So two sounds bad, but compared to what we used to be dealing with, it's a pretty good number. They've been declining. Like I've said in previous meetings, it's with the direction of how we're applying our staffs, the public support, and our campaigns are working. And the last thing I'd like to add is we're getting into, unfortunately, the dreaded tax season coming up. We always see an increase, especially people start filing their tax returns and come to find out that someone already filed them for them. That's a common fraud that people are doing. And, there's many ways to combat it, but the best recommendation we can give, and the IRS actually wants you to contact them. The number is 800-829-1040. So if you go to file your tax returns and comes to find out they've already been filed for you, that's one of the first steps you should do is by contacting that number.
Thank you, Neil.
Welcome.
Doug, have anything to add? I guess it's still not working. Doug, we can't hear. Captain, we can't hear you.
Wait a minute. There. I think.
All right, you almost have it now, Doug, I think.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay. It's so much easier when you could just reach over and tap them on the shoulder. But anyway, it was a good effort. Good. Chief?
All right. So the traffic report was inclusive in the statistics that were given in the for activity. Community calendar, I don't have anything new to add right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
As we go into the spring, of course, the events will come to us, the races, things like that. The regional services, the status report, we once again, that's someone on hold. I think you're familiar with that
Yep.
as we try to talk about
Yeah.
dispatch and other things. So with your permission, I'll go right to the budget component.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm going to talk about first where we are with the active budget currently. I'd also like to speak, I know we've talked about this in 3 other meetings, including a workshop, but for the benefit of Commissioner Hessen, I'd like to just kind of reiterate some of the additional budget requests that we have in that are going forward with the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen. Okay, so first for our actual budget, most of our line items are where they should be comparatively at this time of the year, with some exceptions, and that mostly goes to labor. As you recall, we were down 3 officers. We did hire a officer lateral who is on the road right now, currently on the midnight shift. We're able to hire and put into the Bridgeport Academy an additional officer, which was one of our former dispatchers, and he's doing a great job at the updates that we're getting. A 3rd officer, because of the 3 vacancies we had due to retirement, he'll be joining us on February 2nd, and that's a lateral transfer from the town of Hamden. So that will bring us up to the levels we had previously prior to July 1st, start of this budget year. So right now, backfilling for those positions going into the last quarter of the year. Also, the additional, we had at one time, 2 weeks ago, 9 people out to COVID, 2 dispatchers and 2 office staff and 5 line officers. That's a lot for us. The officers that are here joining me on this call, and I thank them all for jumping in and handling a patrol car and helping us patrol the town because of the shortages. There's only so much we can do. We can't continually order people to work around the clock. So I thank you all, captain, lieutenants, for your help in that. I myself, I was in for New Year's Eve. So, any questions on the operating budget at this point?
No, I know that some of this is we've talked previously about kind of clarifying, particularly the labor budget in terms of how we might even simplify this the summary version, so that there can be we can clearly see the correlation between, if we're down vacancies, down the number of officers, as the chief mentioned, we would expect, as we have seen, a significant increase in the overtime. And that's an area that, clearly is a driver for both service and for budget expense for the department that we're trying to address in the next fiscal year. But that labor ballet between having enough full-time officers on regular shifts, and then recognizing there's always going to be some overtime because of, short-term events or incidents. We just have we've concluded that certainly one of the core things, problems is we just have been so tight to the edge along a budget plan that any event, a individual out for workers' compensation, or certainly COVID has been devastating sometime, for many organizations, but particularly for an organization like a police agency. So, we're going to try to summarize this a little more to make it digestible on a monthly basis. But I think, Chief, your ongoing attention to this is understood and appreciated. And in some cases, we know we've really asked some officers to sacrifice, holidays, planned vacation time, family events, and hopefully, with some of the requests we have in, we can see some solutions to this. So this is an ongoing work in progress, this whole budget management and plan that we have. So anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yep.
Out of most of the budget lines, the one that obviously is the indicator of what we're facing, staffing levels, has always been the overtime replacement line. But also on the other side of that, and I guess for Ms. Fitzgerald and Ms. Hessen is that we do have some unencumbered wages from the beginning of the year, and we're down up to 3 officers, and that at one point, we will do a line transfer to somehow mitigate the overtime right now that we're facing. We're almost approaching about $81,000 in overtime year to date for replacement. Any further questions on the regular budget?
Nope. So,
Can I ask just for clarification on that? So
Sure.
replacement is overtime that's being spent while you're looking to fill in spots that are vacant? Is that what you mean by replacement?
I'm going to put the overtime replacement line is so that I can have a minimum staff on the road caused by either sickness, illness, or a retired body. I'm short staff.
Okay.
That's
so
the
any
overtime
kind of-
replacement line. Yes.
Okay.
So as we went into the fall, we were down 3 officers, and then we had the effect of COVID.
Right.
So we're slowly but surely, because it's not easy to hire an officer right away. So you have to go through a vetting process, and most certainly in Madison, we try to hire the most qualified person for the position. So I don't want to say we're picky, but we're picky. So it's a slow process. So right now, we've done well. We've mitigated fairly well. I think that looking at some of the dollars that we have, we'll be able to soften the maybe. I try to avoid asking for the special appropriation. I try to wait to May or June if we have to do that. So I've done this now for many years, that we try to move monies towards the end that we're from other labor areas to mitigate the effect of having to ask for the additional monies to cover the shortages.
Yeah.
Okay. If I may, I'd like to speak to the additional budget requests we made. I know we've talked about this in the other meetings, but I know, Jeannie, you've heard this. Jude, what we're asking for is during the budget year of 22-23 is 3 additional police officers, and that breakdown is 2 officers as of July 1st and a 3rd officer as of January 2023. During the same fiscal year. So it's 6 months, obviously, less than having 3 officers, the effect. The cost overall with HR is, the cost to our budget is approximately $271,000 additional we're asking. And the HR component is approximately $152,000. That's obviously benefits, medical, retirement, unemployment, all that. We're also asking, and we had a discussion, we've lived this, and most certainly in the commission meetings over the years, but one of the best tools we have, and I call it a force multiplier, is the use of those solar speed signs. We have 2 right now on Route 1. We have a couple in other locations. We'd like to order 6 additional speed signs. Now, the discussions come up before, is that something that should be coming out of Drum's budget, or is that something that should be coming out of the Public Works budget? We have folks that come to us all the time making these requests, and we're very good at handling the requests, doing the studies, and bringing them to closure, which is key. So I'm going to ask for it in our budget. If they decide during the process that it's something that should be in another budget, but the fact remains it's predicated on a need. Right? The cost of those 6 signs is $29,147. In addition to this is that during dialogue with many of the neighborhoods throughout the town, there was a strong interest that we look towards fixed cameras, some of the critical choke points going into various neighborhoods. We've done some research. We've come upon a few companies that are operating currently in Connecticut. A lot of the cities are ordering this brand of camera. The remote cameras, they're fixed. They're about 15 feet off the ground. They have a static IP. They have the capability of they have a capability of live feed back to dispatch, also to the vehicles. They also have capability of holding information for up to 90 days. The cost for each camera is $2,000 annually, all in. That means all installation, all maintenance, the storage, the cloud, all that's inclusive in the price. We identified where we could place 10 within the 2 up north, 8 in the southern part area around Route 1. Some of the neighborhoods that feed towards the beach areas, the surf club, some of the town's assets. And total cost for those cameras annually is 24,000. Now that may be that, and perhaps the radar signs may be put towards a CIP application. I'm not quite sure, maybe over time, but this is the request we're making. So the total request that we're making for the town, to the town on the police side is $325,000 additional.
Okay, let me just,
For the question, please, on the solar speed signs, for either the department or Public Works, which of the two departments would expedite getting the money so we could get them installed quicker? Or is it all going to happen at the same hearing?
You know the answer?
Probably.
Listen, we've been through this. Anybody that's been around the police commission most certainly has watched these meetings. Is we continually get people when they're upset, the quality of life involving most certainly traffic, speed, other. They've come to us, we've approved them. We had the old system in place was that we would approve them through the commission to place a sign or the speed sign, etc. And that we would then go to the Public Works to have them installed. That was an exacerbated procedure. We weren't bring it to closure. People are upset. They've come back to the meetings. They'd write the letters. They'd call us up. So we took it on ourselves and we started doing it ourselves and taking from our budget, which is not the right way to do it. You know, I currently have 2 signs that we put on Route 1. The expense of those signs, I'm told that half will come out of my budget, half will come out of Public Works. And I'm still waiting for that bill to get paid. To answer the question is, people come to us, they tell us their issue, we look into it, we do a study if we have to, we weigh the cost analysis, and then we come to a conclusion very quickly for these folks, and we expedite it. We put the sign in. So I'm going to say us, the police department handles it much better, very quickly, very efficiently, and the commission very quickly, very efficiently.
okay, that's, let me try to summarize because we have some, Jeannie, really appreciate you stepping up as liaison to the finance committee with the police commission, and just for Judy Hessen's, your perspective. We've had, as the chief just noted, we spent a considerable portion of our meeting time this particular fiscal year talking about how to put together and justify a budget request. What do we need? Why do we need it? You know, what's the cost going to be? And we began these discussions in response to what we saw was kind of unprecedented public engagement and attendance at our meeting beginning in the summer. We had, you know, up to 45 people at public meetings, and on Zoom meetings. We had a standing room only crowd at the time when we were meeting at the police department. And so we kind of processed that information, went through for a series of police commission meetings, then had a separate budget workshop where we charged the chief with putting together some detailed information about these requests. How might, you know, what was the justification? And our purpose was not to ask for 10 pounds and hope we could get 5 pounds. Our approach was, let's not ask for anything unless it's absolutely necessary in a core part of our police department budget going forward. You know, we're not, you know, I felt strongly as the other commissioners, you know, we're not going to be cute about this. Yes, we understand, you know, there's always a compromise or, you know, something that may not be fully granted, but we wanted to go in and make our best case for the additional officers and for this equipment. So, and that's, you know, where we left it and where we voted on it. And there was really a strong consensus of the commissioners at that time. This is the request that we need to make. If it gets turned down by the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, so be it. They're exercising their elected responsibilities, but we have our appointed responsibilities to go ahead and request what we think is prudent for a responsible and effective police agency. So this is where we are, and there's a budget process. We have in the past been very prudent and judicious about asking for a request. We've charged the chief sometimes with pull the rabbit out of the hat, and we can we'll make do, and we simply ran out of runway with that approach in meeting the public expectations, which have not remained static over the last several years. So this is where we are. We certainly are prepared as a commission, and we will be asking fellow commissioners to attend some of these Zoom meetings and participate in some of these discussions and be prepared to support the chief as these questions come up. I certainly realize it is a significant request, certainly given the past requests that have come out of the police department. This is a significant break with practice, but we're at the point where this is what we need, and we're not going to ask for less than what we need and still, I think, take a responsible role as commissioner. So Chief, appreciate your summary. It's very helpful. Those are the numbers going forward. And we think it's important to put this on the table. So thank you. Any other comments about the budget at this point? So stay tuned. Thank you.
One other additional is the special appropriation we spoke about involving cameras, technology.
Okay.
So, all right, as we explained previously, I'm not sure if Jude is aware. We had a issue with we had a watch guard system for our cameras in the cars and also on the body cams. We had experienced issues with our server. We weren't using the cloud, we're using the server. And the server, we had server failure. We also had a issue with the watchguard company as far as technology. They were no longer going to cover some of the equipment that we had put in the cars, and some of it as new as 24 months ago. So we've since started with another company. We've used some dollars that we've had put aside for vehicle replacement equipment, and with some of the technology monies that we generally share with Art Sickles budget line technology, we have 5 inbound cameras for vehicles. So what I have to do prior to July 1st is I have to replace our body camera system and an additional 15 cameras for the cars. That cost is approximately between $260,000, $299,000. That's all inclusive, all servicing, and using the cloud for storage. That's based on a 3-year contract with the vendor. We had that discussion as we moved through the various boards. I had that discussion with CIP. I had that discussion with the Board of Finance. Most certainly, I've also had the discussion with the chairman. So I have to move forward and ask for a special appropriation to cover that, so I can get those in place prior to July 1st. What's also driving this is that I'm very concerned about capacity and failure of the current system we have. Then we would be out of compliance with the state of Connecticut.
I think this is a no alternative. Dude,
Yeah,
go ahead.
do we have any recourse against WatchGuard if it's their server, if we're having server issues that are failing because of their equipment or their technology, or the fact that they've sold us equipment 24 months ago that they're no longer servicing? Is there any recourse against them? Are we getting anything back from them?
They changed technology. They did this with us also with tasers. They sell us equipment, and we're under the belief that we're buying equipment with a 5-year lifespan. That was our equipment, 5-year lifespan, and that they would be servicing them. Right now, they're having a crisis within. A lot of it has to do with that production of their equipment comes offshore. Add to that what's related to COVID and shipping. I'm sure that's probably weighing in. We borrowed the server. That there was a new server in reserve for the Board of Ed that they've loaned out to us to use temporarily. Everything we're doing now is manual because we cannot get WatchGuard to help us with the download process. So this is it's very concerning. We still have to maintain a camera system. The new company that we've elected to go with is made in America. It's all made in Texas. They're predominantly with larger police agencies. We're not going to have a problem with material, with getting a product. Their contract is, if it says 5 years or 3 years, right to the last day, they will honor it. So we did our due diligence with Artsicle with trying to run this down. There's another component. Are there federal monies out there, grants? The only problem I have with the federal grants is that they will dictate how long capacity-wise we store that information. And we go through a lot of storage. So that means storing it for 90 days versus storing it for up to 2 years. The cost, accepting a grant for a few $100,000 would not be prudent because it's going to cost us beyond that to store all that capacity. We're now required to because we accepted federal money to pay for that system.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Jeannie?
this is,
Jeannie?
Ed, can I just say 1 second? I just want to make a couple of comments. I think the idea of your new budget approach and asking on what you believe you need is important because I think, unfortunately, we've seen it with other entities connected to the town who have tried to be prudent over the years, ends up actually hurting them in the end. And then when they get to a breaking point, they have to ask for a larger amount of money because they are now so far behind the 8 ball. So I think it's great that you're starting to get it out there. If the town turns it down, the town turns it down. But the conversation's out there then, and it's harder then for the town to say, you can't have this huge jump, and you just keep saying, we keep bringing it to you. Nothing's new. There's no hidden costs in here. So I think that's a really good idea, and it did work well, I think, with the ambulance, and I think it's important for you to get it out. I agree with Jack about the federal funds. You got to be careful. There's so many strings attached to that, and a lot of it is for larger communities, and we don't have the resources. It'll end up costing us more money in the end. I would strongly suggest with the cameras, you go for a special appropriations. Right now is a good time to ask. So I would go to Peggy and see if you can get the selectmen to agree to that for the cameras, and then have that go to the Board of Finance. It has to be generated from the Board of Selectmen. But I think because of the compliance issue, I don't think it's something that will be, denied. And I think the sooner you get that in there, the better, because there's lots of people coming in looking for things. But I think compliance, I think the safety of the community will become a priority. That's it.
Thank you, Jean. Can you make sure that Al Goldberg, who doesn't appear to be here, gets a copy of your remarks?
yeah.
Sure.
Oh, well, that's it, yeah. Al mentioned he was going to be late because I think he's at a Board of Selectmen meeting.
I think it's a CIP meeting, yes.
CIP meeting, excuse me. Thanks, Steve. But Jean, thank you. There was a helpful perspective, and Chief, I think you've got the certainly the full endorsement to move ahead with the request. Is there any? Let me just ask, any commissioner have any questions, reservations, concern about moving ahead with this special request? Ian, you're okay? Marietta, you're good?
No.
Good. Okay, thank you. Good.
I just want to remind the commissioners that I believe we're January 20th with other public safety. Is that a Thursday night? For our first swipe at the canvas, so to speak, with the budget process.
Okay.
So it's probably going to be a Zoom call, I'm assuming. Yes? Okay.
Yeah. Holly, if you could send out a reminder just for that date for us to, those who are able to participate, that would be helpful. Holly is becoming very tuned in on how helpful it is to remind the commissioners about many things, including meetings. But anyway, thank you, Jack. Good point. Okay, Chief, I guess we're through with your agenda. Is there any, in terms of new business, any immediate update in terms of the Police Accountability Act? I know it's certainly read the public comment that it's continuing to move along, but there it is. How many pages? Okay.
Got a new fan.
We just finished, basically this is the draft of the charge for the final report to the General Assembly. So that's going to be going forward. Once they accept that, it goes to publication. Of course, that'll be available for everybody or anybody to get online. And it does speak to the 43 requested changes. For us in everyday law enforcement, some of the bigger issues are the motor vehicle stop, some of the legislative changes to that stop. Also, they did talk to the MSW, Master Social Work, embedding a social worker within the police agency. They kind of left that open right now, defined what they'd like to see, and see what the General Assembly does with it within one of the Public Safety or Judiciary Committee. Probably the most effective, though, for officers is one, there's going to be a change to the interpersonal, the motor vehicle stop. They're going to, what they don't want is secondary stops anymore for officers. If you stop a car for speeding and you come in there with a whole litany of violations, those become administrative. You not take action. A lot of the restrictions also affect what we do with the canine program as to what we could use a dog and not use a dog. A lot of the changes to the law have to do with intimidation of operators, intimidation of operators of color. So it's there's a lot of work by the subcommittees. I think that we're going to continue our charge beyond the beginning of the legislative when they convene. They're going to probably come back with some of the changes and modify them. I think they're going to extend the sunset dates for some of the compliance. I think a lot of the cities are going to have trouble complying with some of the stated requests. I think when you look at towns that have a very good fiscal outlook, where they may be Fitch, AAA Fitch ratings and reserves, they'll accomplish the tasks. But I think a lot of the cities are going to, a lot of the dollars are going to be dedicated to the cities. So hopefully it'll be a give and take and not just an ultimatum back to the communities. You know, I hope that it's slow. It's basically a ramp up to it. So that's about it. That's a snapshot of what it is.
Thank you. Well, I know
Thank
it's an omelet that is still being made. So please keep us tuned in, particularly as some of the resource requirements become a little, clearer. It is, it is something that, we just anticipate. You can't really fully gauge all the changes that will occur and how they affect us budget-wise. But anyway.
We also, part of the process is they asked that we attend and participate in a panel with the inner cities. We recently through December did Hartford, West Hartford, and Farmington. I was on the panel for Hartford and West Hartford, as well as a second officer, Deputy Chief Matty Vargas from University of Connecticut. And it was very robust. It was interesting, a good give and take. And I think a lot of people are looking for change. A lot of people are looking for answers to questions they've been asking for years. So.
Well, it's an active topic. Thank you. Okay. No correspondence was included in this month's packet. So commissioner comments.
None here.
Marietta,
I have none, thank you.
Ann?
No, no comments today.
Uh, uh, Jude, do you have any comments at all? I just have a brief comment. One, I wanted to congratulate Lieutenant York in terms of his recent promotion. Lieutenant, it's a well-earned promotion where, you've certainly taking on some responsibilities that are absolutely critical. So you're delighted you're continue to be part of this leadership team. And also Kate Randall, I know in terms of her taking on new responsibilities, as well as Holly, who just has really stepped up as the chief shifted some things around with Captain Race leaving. So anyway, thank you very much, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Is there? We do have an important executive session meeting to hold, and Holly, I believe you emailed us all the Zoom link for the executive session. So once we have a motion to leave this meeting, I'll ask people to leave this meeting and then connect again via Holly's executive session request. I've asked Holly to stay on just so she can kind of lifeguard us through the process to get to the executive session, and then we'll excuse her. So in any event, that's see if we can't get to that process. And I do certainly, to your fellow commissioners, I do appreciate you spending some extra time. This is one of the key discussion meetings we have as a commission, and so I know it's we're using up a lot of your airtime here, but I really appreciate your willingness and availability to participate. So thank you in advance. So is there a motion to move into
Motion to
executive session?
adjourn
Adjourn and move into executive session.
and move
Okay.
into executive session.
Second?
Second. Second.
Okay, good. Thank you. We will adjourn our regular session and reconvene as people sign off and sign back on to the executive session. Chief, thank you very much. Lieutenant, Cap, thank you.